Welcome class 10 to another class of biology, and we are studying heredity and evolution. Last time I was telling you about the father of genetics, Gregor Mendel, and his experiments with his garden peas, the pea plant, Pisum sativa, right? And last time I had left you with this problem here. Mendel's experiments, I told you, Mendel was conducting a lot of experiments, and this was the first observation that he came across, that whenever he crossed a tall plant with a dwarf plant, he would either get all the offsprings tall, 100% all the offsprings, whatever seeds that they got, he grew them in the soil, and all of them came out to be tall. None of them were dwarfs. That means the dwarf parent characters were lost in this generation. And then he also came across sometimes when he crossed a tall plant with a dwarf plant, he would get 50-50 ratio, where 50% plants were tall and 50% were dwarf. This was the problem I left you with in my last class. This class I am going to explain to you why did this happen. Right? So for this we need to understand that every character in us is passed on from our parents. Okay, every character that we have has been passed on from our parents, and we have two parents, one father and a mother. Both of them gave their characters to us. Today we know that they have passed their genes through their DNA. So our DNA that we have is from our father as well as mother. Mendel at his time in 1850s, he did not know about DNA, he did not know about genes. So he assumed that some factors are coming from our father and our mother. He did not know what these factors are. Today we know these factors are genes, right? But that time he did not know, so he just called them factors. Some factors responsible for inheritance from our father, and some factors from our mother. So that means every character that we have two factors. One factor from our father and one from our mother. Is that clear? That needs to be understood to understand this cross. So for every character in us, let us say eye color, there are factors, two factors that are coding for my eye color. These two factors, out of these two factors, one has come from my father, one from mother. So we have two factors for every character, and same with the pea plant. If a pea plant was tall, because of two factors from its father and mother. If a pea plant was dwarf, it was from its father and mother. But through the observations, Mendel did not know the factors, so what he did, he showed the factors with alphabets. So two factors, capital T, we call them alphabets because he did not know how else to represent these factors. And here he represented with small t. Why both? Why not capital D? Why T he used? Because whether tall or dwarf, the character is the same. The height of the plant, either tall or the dwarf, it is the same character, but two different. Last time I told you, two different phenotypes. Phenotypes are the external characters. Two different phenotypes for one single character. The character was height of the plant, and two different phenotypes are tall and dwarf, contrasting characters. Okay, and two factors here from its father and mother, two factors from here from its father and mother. Okay, so when we cross these two different plants, what is going to happen? When we cross these two, children are born. Now these children will have factors from the tall parent also and from the dwarf parent also. That means these plants will be having some factors from tall parent and some factors for dwarf parent. So here they got 100% tall. The factors from dwarf parent was also there, but still they got 100% tall. So Mendel came to this conclusion that the factors are transferred from parents to offsprings, but they may be expressed or they may not be expressed. Like in this case, the small t was for dwarfness of the plant, it did not express itself. So this character did not express itself, whereas this character expressed itself. Right? So this was one type of conclusion, and there he saw that this type of factors, this combination of factors was giving a tall plant. So what if this tall parent was not, this is tall, we can't see the internal factors. So we assumed that the tall parent was capital T, but we saw in this case that a tall plant can be from capital T and small t also. So what if the tall parent used here was capital T and small t? This also produces a tall phenotype. So if this character, if this character was coded by capital T and small t, then what would happen? See, these will give their factors to their children, right? Even this will give their factors to the children. So here we don't have any option. Here dwarfness will be given only by small t, small t. There is no other option here. These options, these combinations are known as genotype. These combinations are known as genotypes. So we can have two different genotypes for the tallness of character and only single genotype for dwarfness of character. Now, when they cross, if these two crossed, if these two were crossed, what phenotypes in their children would you see? See, this parent would always give small t. So this parent would always give small t, no problem in that. But here the parent could give either capital T or small t, one of those two, or different characters in different things. So let us say that this parent, tall parent, give tall capital T to the next generation. So you will get again capital T and small t. That means this children would be tall because capital T is come, capital T and small t will always give tall. Here you saw capital T, small t will always give tall. Fine. Now what would have happened if this parent did not give capital T? If this parent gives small t, what happens? So small t from this parent and small t from this parent. So what you will get? A dwarf plant. So why did he get these results? He was getting this result only if the tall parent was capital T and small t, and if the tall parent was capital T, all the children would be tall. This was the test that he did, and this was the conclusion that he came to. Then he put it in nice words and gave it a statement. He gave a statement for this, which we call it the law of dominance. Let us see law of dominance. So here we have the law of dominance. Law of dominance begins with the general presumption that Mendel had, that all characters in us or in plants arise due to a pair of factors. Not one factor, but a pair of factors, one from each parent. One from the father, one from the mother. These pair of factors come from both the parents. So for every character in us, we have a pair of factors giving rise to a character, or what Mendel said was trait. Instead of character, you can also say trait. And the second is the main law. The law says that in a hybrid, what is a hybrid? Where the parents have different characters. So when the parents have different characters and when they are crossed, so what will happen? They are going to give different factors to the child. So we call them the dissimilar pair. So in a hybrid has dissimilar pair of factors. Dissimilar pair of factors, remember, we just saw the tallness, where tallness can be coded by capital T also and small t also. So that is a dissimilar pair. So in a hybrid, when the children have dissimilar pairs, one factor might always express itself. It is not going to keep quiet, it is always going to express itself. Whether it is both the factors are capital T, or even one factor is capital T, it will always express itself. That we call is the dominant factor. Dominant means it will express itself whether it is one or it is both of them factors are the same. They will be known as dominant factors which always express themselves. And then there are factors which are not able to express themselves in the presence of the other factor. The shy type of factors, and we will call them the recessive factors. they are not able to express themselves in the presence of the other factor. So Mendel gave this law that in a dissimilar pair, one might always express, one might not express itself. This is law of dominance, very important statement. Please write it down in your copy. So finally, to put the first law into perspective, here is the experiment that was conducted by Mendel in a proper way. Okay, so if you could not understand previous experiment, the crossing, you please understand this crossing. This is very important crossing. Now, this cross is also known as mono-hybrid cross. Mono-hybrid cross because mono means one, hybrid means mixing of characters. Here we are mixing characters for one trait. What is the trait? The trait is the height of the plant. We are taking the height of the plant. So the height of the plant can be tall, can be dwarf, but both are speaking about the height of the plant. So when we cross a tall and a dwarf plant, you are crossing them to get a hybrid of one character. This is the one character which is hybrid. So that is what you understood what is hybrid. And hybrid in one character. So that is the height of the plant. So here we have this way. This is the way you need to write it down in your exam. When you're writing down, you have to write it in this way. The parent generation that we are taking a tall plant whose phenotype is tall and genotype is capital T. Both are the same. Okay, so this phenotype parent Mendel took, and another phenotype Mendel took was dwarf parent, and dwarf parents could come from only small t and small t. So when he crossed them, he could get the children, the offsprings that he got. He did not get only one offspring, he got thousands of offsprings, but all the thousands had the same character. They were all tall, but you can understand they will all be hybrids because their parents were tall and dwarf. When you cross a tall and dwarf, you will get a hybrid. Here see, they have factors of both the parents, but only one factor is expressing itself. The capital T is producing a tall. What about the small t? It is not producing dwarf. So that was the first law of dominance. What does law of dominance say? That in a hybrid, one character might always express itself. We call it the dominant factor. So capital T is the dominant factor because it is producing the phenotype. And the other factor might not express itself as the dominant factor is expressing. It will not express itself in the presence of the dominant factor. So small t is there, but it is not expressing itself. It can't express itself. So this is known as a hybrid, and dominant factor, recessive factor. Okay, so recessive factor is there. Plants are tall, but recessive factor, the factors for dwarfness is there. How do we know? Mendel can't see the capital T and small t. When you look at a plant, you can't see capital T and small t. So how did Mendel know the small t is there? He self-crossed the F1 generation. This will be known as the F1 generation, the first filial generation, the first generation of offsprings. When he self-crossed them, self-crossing means crossing this plant with itself. When he self-crossed it, the genotype remains the same. And when they form gametes, when this will form gamete, either this will go in the gamete or this will go in the gamete. Gametes are haploid. Either capital T will go in the gamete or small t will go in the gamete. So I have mentioned it here in this box, in this square. This square is known as Punnett square. Punnett square, which will show us what different probabilities you will get. Okay, so I have written the gametes outside the square. These are the gametes. So this plant can produce either this type of gamete or this type of gamete. So thousands of gametes it will produce. Half of them will be like this, half of them will be like this. And since it is self-crossing, the female part of this plant will also produce either capital T or small t. So when you cross, if probability, okay, it depends on probability, it depends on nature. So if probability says if capital T and capital T of both the male part and the female part got together, you would get capital T, and this would result in a tall offspring. And this we are talking about F2 generation, the second filial generation. So in the F2 generation, you would get capital T tall plant. Or otherwise what would happen? Capital T would mix with the small t. If capital T and small t mix, you will get a capital T and small t. Capital T and small t, since the capital T is present, the plant will be tall. Or else small t and capital T from here, capital T and small t written here, and this would also result in the tall parent, a tall offspring. What if small t and small t got together? Small t and small t would give dwarf. And this was confirmed by his experiment. Mendel, when he crossed these F1 plants, just to remind you, what was he doing? He was seeing whether this small t is present inside the plant or not. So when he self-crossed these plants, he could get dwarf plants. By self-crossing hybrid tall plants, he was getting some amount of dwarf plant, showing that the small t is present in the F1 generation. The small t is present in the F1 generation, but it is not able to express itself. So he called it the recessive factor. The recessive factor cannot express itself, but it will express itself in the next generation only if both the factors are recessive. Okay, so what final result Mendel got was, he called it the phenotypic ratio, the ratio of the phenotypes of F2 generation. Phenotype, the external characters. So F2 generation, the thousands of plants that he got, out of them 75% plants were tall. 75% plants were tall, 25% plants were dwarf. So we get the ratio 3:1. Out of 4 plants, 3 plants were tall and 1 plant was dwarf out of every plant in his garden. So how did he interpret the result? He showed it in the form of the factors and genotypes, and how these factors mix together to produce a phenotype. So this cross explains law of dominance, especially in the hybrid state. Here, when a hybrid is formed by mixing of two different characters, one factor of one parent might express itself always, that is a dominant factor, while the other factor might not express itself, that is a recessive factor. And this, today what we studied, is known as law of dominance. The statement is important, this cross is important. So you study this cross properly, and you can use it for flower color, you can use it for height of the plant, you can use it for color of the seeds, any character, any single character. So monohybrid cross always produces 3:1 ratio. So I'll meet you in the next class. Until then, you study this cross properly.